The Holocaust, to me, was part of my upbringing. I was surrounded by people who lived in the shadow and with ghosts of the Holocaust. So it's part of me, unfortunately, and something that I grew up with. What date was it? In July? So during the war you were hidden?
I was 3 years in a convent in Ursula.
My mother was in a convent, but I don't know where. Somewhere in Slovakia. I don't know where.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think she got exposed there something. My mother was born in Slovakia in May of 1928, and as a child, vividly recalled standing, looking at the train yards, and seeing people in boxcars being shipped east. As things got more heated in Slovakia, the family went into hiding. My mother went through a few different hiding phases, and ultimately the family hid on a farm where they were hidden by a Slovak farmer. A former employee of my grandfather identified one of them, called the Gestapo, and the family was arrested, and that led to their ultimate deportation. They moved them to a very infamous camp by the name of Ravensbrück in Germany. Had typhus, typhoid, malnutrition, weighed about 65 or 68 pounds. By all accounts, was really days from death. They were liberated in April 1945. My mother was very, very Zionistic and had planned to move to Israel. To accommodate my grandmother, my mother agreed to go with them to Canada and then go to Israel from Canada once they got settled. In the building across the street was a very nice family who had a son who had just come back from Europe, where he had served for 5 years in the Royal Canadian Air Force. That was my father. So this is my mother's wedding to my father in Montreal. She's probably deeply sad.
She's mourning.
She's mourning. And you could see it in her face. This is a picture of somebody who looks like they're at a funeral. And she loved my father, and they had a very nice marriage. I think it entirely had to do with the fact, with the realization that she was at a wedding without her father, without her family. My mother's legacy is really one of decency. She was a very decent person, and she was a non-judgmental and empathic person. We should be empathic. We should be sympathetic to people. It's something that Shelley and I think, have tried to, if not teach to the kids, demonstrate to the kids. My mother was all about her kids and her kids' kids. She did not want her life to be defined by the fact that she had been a victim. She wanted her life to be defined by the positive things in her life. We have to remember what happened, because remembering what happened is the basis for why we have museums like this. The LA Museum of the Holocaust is really designed to teach history to people who may not know it. If we don't study history, if we don't open up the archives of human behavior to living generations, we're apt to repeat it again. Educating our young people about the past, making them sensitive to issues of the past that are reflective of a very dark side of the capability of human beings, will hopefully provide a level of defense for the prevention of such horrible atrocities to occur in the future. And that's why this museum is so important.
Frank had a huge impact on me just when I first met him. He's such an incredible person. He's such a strong and smart man. When I met his mother, I could see why. I always wanted to have a family. I always wanted to have a mother-in-law, father-in-law, and she was the perfect mother-in-law. She was so brave and so loving and so accepting of me that I felt like I had come home. I needed to keep the history of who she was alive for my children.
We've been very, very fortunate in our lives. We lived in a time of peace. We lived in a time of prosperity. We shouldn't take that for granted, and we should not squander the gifts that we have. I think that's the legacy that my mother has given her children.